Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Unit 1. My name is Christine Holt and we have South Seminole Academy from Florida here for the National Invitational. In a moment, I will have the judges introduce themselves, followed by the students, and then we will begin the hearing. Students will deliver a 4-minute prepared statement, followed by 8 minutes of judge questions. My microphone will be muted during the hearing, and I will hold up 1 minute and time signs. I suggest that you use gallery view rather than speaker view. All of the students have been spotlighted. At the conclusion of the hearing, judges will give brief feedback to the team, and then we will conclude. Judges, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Christine. Hi, I'm Tim Moore from the Center for the Study of the American Constitution at the University of Wisconsin. And my colleagues are?
I'm Glyptis Ann Grider-Jones from the University of Louisville's McConnell Center.
There we go. Old person is unmuted himself. Now, my name is Alan Broadman. I have recently retired as a teacher from East Brunswick, New Jersey. I brought a number of teams to the national competition, and my students were wonderful enough to have won a number of national championships. So I am looking forward to hearing from you folks.
Yes, and you are?
Hi, I'm Catherine Kong from South Seminole Academy, Unit 1.
Hi, my name is Mason Forbes, also from South Seminole Academy.
And I'm Catherine McCullough from South Seminole Academy, Unit 1.
Great. Catherine, you might Catherine, you might want to speak up. That was a little soft. So I guess we're going to do question number 1 today, if that's all right with you guys. Well, that's not a real question. We're just going to do question 1 whether you like it or not. Sorry about that. I'll read it and then we can begin. What is a constitution and a constitutional government? What is Republican government? How can constitutional governments be organized to prevent the abuse of power and protect natural rights? How can higher or fundamental law be distinguished from statutory or ordinary law that governments regularly create and enforce? You may begin.
A constitutional government is a form of government that's conducted according to rules and principles. It helps to constrain abuses of power by dividing and provides a framework in which a government can be both responsible and representative. Unlike tyrannies, autocracies, and dictatorships, a constitutional government is a limited government, which means that it has restraints on their power. Inside of this, there's something called a constitution, also known as law of the land. There are 2 types of constitutions, written ones and unwritten ones. Although they both represent a law framework, they differentiate in some ways. For instance, written ones are formal documents defining the settlement's nature with the rules and rights in codified form, and have been formally enacted by the government, whereas unwritten ones have the fundamental rules take the form of customs, precedents, and a variety of other legal instruments.
To add on to that, in a constitutional government, powers are usually distributed and shared among several branches of government. Having multiple branches that share equal amounts of power will benefit everyone in the government and the people living under the rule of the government. People living in the society will feel like it is run by many people with different opinions rather than one person with one opinion. A concept of this is checks and balances and rule of law. These limit the government and the powers it can have. Checks and balances keep the branches in check by limiting each other's power, and rule of law ensures no one is above the law. These principles keep the powers distributed and equal.
Many countries' constitutions include the form of government known as a republic. But what does that mean? Well, in a republican government, which has nothing to do with political parties, is a form of government where people can elect representatives. When originally being created, the founders of this idea described it as the people holding the power, and then it is given to the representatives they choose. The founders also said that it was created with the intent of the representatives choosing to put the people's best interests first and help everyone in the country, instead of just a specific group of their choosing or based on their own personal interest. Many countries today still have republics. Some of these are Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, El Salvador, Kenya, Madagascar, and many more. All, or at the very least most, of these countries still function well under their current systems.
When we think of government, the term law or laws often come to mind. Laws can be broken down into two major categories: higher or fundamental and statutory or ordinary. Higher, more fundamental laws can be interpreted as divine and natural laws and are superior to ordinary legislative acts. Higher or fundamental laws go hand in hand with constitutional laws because that's the mere definition. The Constitution of a nation is a supreme law and includes information regarding our inalienable rights, life, liberty, and property, establishes the role of government to protect these rights, and places a limit on how people use their powers, which are all characteristics of higher laws. Meanwhile, statutory or ordinary laws are known as normal laws that you can find all around the country, like traffic laws, for example. Thank you for listening. We're finished, and we are now taking follow-up questions.
Okay, so you talked a bit at the beginning of your speech about limited government. I like to explore that a bit. Now, historically, I'd like you to evaluate how good a job have we done from framing to today in actuating this idea of limited government. And if you'd like, you may go ahead and give our system a grade, like you do in for your classwork, on how good of a job they have done.
From the very beginning, we've had many troubles, and the Constitution has defined our limited government. And over the course of the years, there's been like many rebellions, like for example, Shays rebellions for the farmer, which led to the Republican or Declaration of Independence. And all governments have some flaws, and I think that the limited government is very good for the U.S. It goes hand in hand with like abuses of power and separation of powers, checks and balances. We still have the government and the fundaments, like the separate three branches: legislative, executive, and judicial, which are still standing to this day. So I believe that they should get some credit for that. Coming to the conclusion that I would give the U.S. A grade, like a B+.
I believe that if we were to give our government a grade, it would be a B+, because even though it has many setbacks, it always comes back and tries to make it better for the citizens in their country.
I completely agree that a B+ would be an adequate grade for the limits in our government, because we have included multiple systems, and though our country has had issues, we have always come back with a way to combat them, be it checks and balances, judicial review, or separation of powers. Either way, we have always tried to improve and limit the amount of tyranny and power in our government, and it has worked well over the years.
Okay. I guess I'd like to ask a little bit about this idea of written and unwritten. Do you think that unwritten constitutions could function well in limiting government?
No, I believe that it should be written, because something that is just said can easily be manipulated to a person's beliefs and how they feel it should be said. But if it's written down, you can just read it off of paper, and that is what it is.
Go ahead, Catherine. I'm sorry.
Okay. I was going to say that I agree that written constitutions are usually better for a country than just unwritten ones, because if it's unwritten, you can easily just take what someone has said and completely misconstrue the meaning. Whereas if it's written down, you can look at the words and you can like dissect it without having to do it in real time.
Well, let me push you a little bit further. How about longer constitutions? Are longer constitutions better than shorter constitutions?
I believe that a shorter constitution is better because knowing from like me personally, if something is very long, I will tend to get bored and try to like distract myself and try to read something else. So I think a more confined and defined, shorter constitution would be better than a longer, less organized one. But if the longer one was a bit more organized, then that would be fine as well.
In a shorter constitution, like if it's written shorter, then people will more likely to get the gist of it and not just blank out.
If the Constitution is too lengthy, like Catherine said, it can bore the people, but I feel like in order to go into depth, you need a little bit of length. So short constitutions are usually better because it can't be too long, but you also can't have it too short.
Thank you.
So some people describe the US as having a republic, said to be both. Some people say it's said to be both a republic, as you all have discussed, but also a democracy on the other hand. So in your opinion, is that an accurate description to say it is both a republic and a democracy? And can you explain why?
I think it is a good, like, it is both. And that's what makes the United States the United States, because it's so diverse and people have different opinions within the country.
I fully agree. It is both a republic and a democracy, because a republic is where the power is held by the people to elect representatives, and that is what we have. But we also have a democracy, and it is all to advocate for the common good, and that is why America is great.
So can you elaborate on how it's a democracy? Can you give some examples?
Well,
You can go ahead. It's my fault.
Okay. Well, I was going to say that it is a democracy, it is a representative democracy because we elect representatives to let the people say, like, the people's opinions be represented in government.
And the whole meaning behind democracy is power to the people. So, and we give the power to the people to vote for the representatives. So that meaning both.
Thank you.
So you talked about the idea of limited government as a means of assuring the people and at one level their rights, and that you seem to advocate generally a written document as opposed to an unwritten document. Yet our framers didn't provide for a written Bill of Rights initially. Was that a mistake?
I don't think it's necessarily a mistake because we have our different thoughts, and just because someone says one is correct doesn't mean the other one is necessarily wrong or considered bad. And at that time, they might have believed that Bill of Rights as unwritten might have been better and more beneficial than if it were just set in stone on a physical paper.
Well, thank you. Anybody want to start out on the feedback?
Okay. I liked some of your opening. You made some connections to some of the key concepts and ideas that we were looking to hear. You jumped right into limited government, which led to the question that I asked. But separation of powers, checks and balances, rule of law. What I think I'd like you to do a bit more of is be able to link those to specific examples. And I think that then shows an even greater depth of understanding to be able to say, okay, so here's the idea, now here's how it was put into play. And I think that's an important step. I think you kind of know that because you understand the concept, but I think it would just really solidify your presentation to provide some of those examples that would just kind of support the ideas that you talk about. So on the whole, guys, I thought you did a nice job. And I enjoyed our discussion. So thank you very much.
I also, in particular, I really liked your opening statement. Very clear. I like how you organized it. You sort of bifurcated. So you always, here's the first thing I want to talk about. Here's the second thing. It was very clear in your presentation, very easy to follow in that structure. Again, echo what Alan is saying here, and just continue as you explore these ideas, continue to use examples, current real world examples, but also the historical, go specifically to the Constitution or to the Declaration of Independence, pull directly, and continue just to use those as you move forward and continue to refine your remarks. I enjoyed your presentation and enjoyed being here with you all today. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with my colleagues as well. I thought, I mean, to Alan's point, I thought you started out on that one question about evaluate our system, and then you say, well, we've got some troubles and we've actually hit some hell raisers. And you mentioned Shays.
Right.
So, I mean, to Alan's point, okay, what's another example of rebellion where people felt? What's another, maybe a few more straws on the camel's back there, so to speak. But I wanted to point out that you did that to a degree by using the Shays example. And this long constitution, short constitution. I don't know whether you're aware of this, but the South African Constitution is 126 pages long. If you're going to get bored, that's a constitution that might do it. So you might want to check that out if you're having trouble sleeping. It'll put you to sleep real quick.
The Brazilian over 300.
Yeah, so it's so there might be something to that there's long constitutions are really going to make your eyes glass over. Now I don't know what the Goldilocks spot is. What the perfect length is. I mean, ours is only 4 pages, so it's pretty short. So yeah, I've enjoyed our time together, and good luck going forward, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.